All right, so today we're talking about Libra season, and Libra season goes from September 22nd to October, I don't have my dates right here, but 21st or 22nd, somewhere in there, somewhere around there. And Libra season it's an air season, and we go from earth to air, which can be a little bit difficult depending on what placements and what things you have going on in your chart. Libra is an air sign that is a cardinal sign. So it starts a new way of thinking. It starts a new way of bringing in information. And because Libra has to do with partnerships and legality and laws of the universe, it also has to do, its main theme is around justice. It's Lady Justice. And one of the things that we know about justice is we can't really have justice without having law and order. We can't really have justice without having those things, which brings us to kind of a juxtaposed position, because if the laws themselves are restricting of justice or not serving the masses, then we're going to have issues. But we really can't have justice without having some law and order. So it's really interesting as we move into Libra season. We're going to see a lot more social justice type issues coming up, as well as inequalities in our financial system, and all of these things that are already an issue coming in even clearer. To know more about what Libra season might mean for you personally is to look at where Libra is in your house system and understand if you have planets or placements there. They're going to be lit up during this time. And if you have anything in the opposite sign, which is Aries, where we have a lot of energy happening, because we have Mars retrograding there, conjunct Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith is the fierce feminine, the ride or die, I call her. And she is all about freedom and sexual freedom. But really, when you get far enough into sexuality and sensuality, you recognize that sexuality is literally just our life force energy. It's our creativity. And so if we're restricting ourselves, or we're trying to restrict others, we're creating a block to that freedom, right? And so having Mars retrograding conjunct Black Moon Lilith and Aries, really being on the opposite side of the spectrum of the sun in Libra, is showing us a lot of the work that we need to do about our personal freedom and how that connects into the collective. There is a lot of suppression of freedom happening right now, with the ideology or the words being used as an opposite way of saying what's really happening. It's very interesting how words can be used, and I've talked about this a lot in my work, so if you followed me for a while, you might have heard me say this, but words have power. And when there's not enough words for the energy or what's really happening, that is a restrictive thing, right? So when we have language and we have words for how we're feeling, what's happening, different things like that, then we're going to experience more freedom. But if we are restricted by language, or if language starts to have different meaning or carry meanings that aren't really fitting for the energy that's behind something, then we run into a lot of dysfunction and a lot of lack of freedom. So it's really important to look at language, especially during an air season, to look at the language that we're using and how much fear we have built up into using certain language or staying away from certain language, and really how that does suppress us in our energy, in our way of moving about the world. So as we move into Libra season, it's right at the equinox. And the equinox, if you have your 2020 Planetary Planner, there's the equinox pages on there that you might want to look at or fill out during this weekend, or in the, it's Tuesday is the equinox. So you have time to really sit with it and figure out what is coming up for you that needs rebalancing during this time of Libra. And it's where the sun and the moon, are experiencing, I'm kind of getting into the new moon and the full moon. So basically with the equinox, we're looking at day and night being equal. It's an equalizer. And so with that happening, we also have light and dark balancing, and we have ways of looking at our shadow. Like we know at this time, even the way that the sun shines is a little bit different, and it creates a different kind of light in our visual perception of things. And because of that light kind of altering or changing, that also has the opportunity for us to equalize or rebalance anywhere in our system where we have had too much of something or not enough of something, and to create that rebalancing within ourselves. Libra is also rules marriage and partnership and the other. And so oftentimes I end up working with a lot more clients during this season, or marital issues or relationship issues or friendship issues or business partner issues tend to come up during this time, partially because we're going from, if you're in the northern hemisphere, being in summer and being like really free and outside all the time, to being in closer proximity, maybe having more rainy days or days where you're inside together, or you're inside and you're just feeling a little bit angsty. So still getting outside, still getting exercise during the season is really helpful for relating and communication and all those things that might be coming up. And because this is a time period that naturally relationship issues tend to come up, it's a great time to invest in building positive relationship in your life during this time. So we're talking about the end of September, from September 22nd to mid to late October. If you guys are interested, I have a really great workshop coming up next week. It's free, and it's called Boundary Setting for Bitches, and it's about really being in your power, in your energy, so that you can be successful in all kinds of relationships. So that one is available through the link in my profile if you guys are interested in checking that out and being there for that. So let's move on now. So we're having the start of Libra season on Tuesday. We're having the equinox on Tuesday, which I'll probably post more about as we get closer to that. And that initiates us into this fall time. And Libra is the start of fall. It's a cardinal sign, so it starts us into fall. And fall goes from Libra to Scorpio to Sagittarius. That is our fall season. And so as we're coming into this part in the circle of life, or this part in the circle of the cosmos, where we're getting into relating and relationships and learning and growing in that area, we really want to keep that in mind as a way to build integrity and build our own personal, if we want to see justice in the mainstream, if in their collective, then we also have to figure out a way to bring that into our homes and to bring that into our closest relationships, into our business partnerships, and the way that we work and the way that we function. We can't literally separate ourselves from what we want to see in the world from how we're actually operating in the world, right? And that's where we're having a major disconnection. And so Libra season has the opportunity and the possibility to kind of reweave that back together, figure out how to have more justice and balance and love and equal opportunity within our households and within our communities, our close communities, without spouting just a lot of nonsense out into the world about what we want to see reflected back to us, without doing any of the deeper work on how we actually treat our spouse, or how we actually treat our children, or how we actually treat our coffee barista. We have to embody the change. We have to live it if we want to be able to see it. And we can't just separate ourselves from that and have a lot of judgment about how people should be without first doing that for ourselves. So this is a big part of what Libra season is all about. And so it's just that opportunity to rework that. That all being said, we have the full moon. So right now we're leaving the new moon time period of new moon in Virgo, and we're slowly building to the full moon on October 1st in 9 degrees of Aries. And 9 degrees of Aries is important to look at. So look at your chart and see if you have anything in 9 degrees of Aries or around that place, or if you have anything in Libra around 9 degrees. So that's going to give you good information. Now, along with that, basically all of Aries is lit up because we have Mars retrograding at the end degrees of, over here at the end degrees of Aries. And so also if you have any placements at the end degrees of Aries, that's going to be really lit up. That's like, if you have planets there, that's like working with an astrologer, doing a full chart reading with me or another astrologer would be really ideal because you're working with some big energy right there. But let's stay with this full moon. So the full moon will be on October 1st. It's at 2:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it's at 9 degrees of Aries. And we have the moon over in Aries conjunct Chiron. And that Chiron is in a longer cycle of being in Aries. It's retrograde right now. And the fact that Chiron, the wounded healer, is retrograde in Aries, 2 degrees off from the moon, our emotions, and it's a full moon, which tends to be pretty conflictive as it is. If people aren't doing the inner work, if the people aren't doing the inner healing wounds work, then there's just going to be a lot of craziness out in the world, right? And we're seeing this all over. So this full moon is a great time to stay home and do your inner work. And it's it could be a full moon that's really stirring up a lot in the collective pot, and for us to keep that in mind so that when the thing does come up, whatever it's going to be, it's going to come up and it's going to try and pull all your energy and pull all your attention away from doing that inner work. And that's going to be your indication that you do indeed need to pull back and do your inner work. So we will see something around this full moon time, October 1st, in the collective. And it's really important to stay focused on where this is happening in your chart, 9-ish degrees of Aries, 9-ish degrees of Libra, and stay focused on your personal work within this. The full moon is always, it's basically where the light of the sun, the full light of the sun, is shining on our emotional landscape, on our emotions, on our places where we didn't get the nurturing that we needed when we were babies or kids, places where we feel like we've been wounded, places where we feel like we need emotional security. And so it's very important to get that, especially around this full moon time, because Aries is very fiery and Aries is the warrior. And so if we're not, it's kind of like, if we're not doing that inner warrior caretaking of ourselves work, then it can be displaced and used. Our warrior energy could be used against us. So just really being aware during that time frame of staying connected to your personal work within the collective and not getting spun out into the collective. And there's always something new. I always say, like, there's always 50 different things, and one of them is going to trigger you. So let's play this card, let's play this card, let's play this card. And one of those is going to trigger you and spin you out, and then there's that energy that wants to feed off that's just about chaos and destruction. So, that being said, just staying centered in your own personal work and working on those triggers is going to be the best thing. So, like, asking yourself, what is triggering me the most about what's happening right now? And then looking at that trigger, what does that mean to me? Or where was the first time that I felt this emotion? And that's going to show you your core inner child wounds so that you can do the bigger work to heal, which is ultimately what we're all here for. So don't get distracted from that work by, corporate sponsored media. Okay, so Mars retrograde conjunct Black Moon Lilith is also there, and at the full moon, Mars is at 24 degrees of Aries. So again, we're just looking at all of Aries for indications of like where this is happening in your chart and what you might notice. I have a whole Mars retrograde in Aries video on my IGTV, which goes through each of the houses, which would be very fitting as well for the full moon. So definitely check that out if you can identify in your chart where Aries is, and then from there you'll have work to do. Okay, so the full moon also has a lot of influence from Capricorn. So we have Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, we have Saturn, which is now direct in Capricorn, and we have Jupiter, which is now direct and I'm talking about at the time of the full moon. So Saturn goes direct on September 29th, and then so it's newly stationed direct at this full moon. So that's another important, like, bing, is a very important full moon in the grand scheme of things. Jupiter direct in Capricorn, Pallas Athena direct in Capricorn, Saturn direct in Capricorn, and Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, all squaring Mars retrograde. So again, Mars retrograde in Aries is about I am. It's the work that you have to do as a spiritual warrior. All of that junk in Capricorn is like the pulling you out, and it's like the system and looking at what's dysfunctional and looking at what is restricting you and what is being unearthed. And that's square at the time of this full moon. So again, another indication that there's going to be a lot happening in the collective, and to really pay attention to your own personal work within that. Mercury will also be newly into Scorpio. Mercury in Scorpio is intense, and it is squaring. So let's see what degree. Mercury is at 4 degrees of Scorpio, and so it's going to be squaring that Saturn. And Saturn, it's not going to be, it's off by some degree, so it's not going to be exact, but it's definitely going to have an influence of kind of that deeper secrets being unrevealed, or things happening to hide those secrets that are trying to be revealed, that kind of thing. Okay, that all to be said, we're going to move on, but this full moon is it's highly conflictive, highly combustible, and really important to stay in your center and stay with your meditative practice, your breathing practice, and understanding that the North Node and the South Node they're building into the eclipses that we'll have in end of November, December, and that's a really important time. So we're kind of really doing some big work before that time period. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the full, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with my charts. Okay, there. So we're going to go into the new moon, which will be a bit, here it is. So the new moon is on October 16th. Thank you, Fina, for looking that up for me. And so October 16th at, I don't know the time, but I'm just going to put it in because I know it'll tell me what I'm doing wrong. Okay, so it's before then. And just gotta adjust here. Okay, so it's around 12:15 on October 16th. We'll have the new moon in Libra. This is taking a while to load. I apologize. And there's a lot of squares happening. Obviously, whenever we have, Aries season, Libra season, and Cancer season during this year, where we have had all of that energy in Capricorn really shaking up our system, unearthing some uncomfortable material, like a lot of destructive energy. Whenever we have that, we're going to have, like, the squares would be happening at Aries and Libra times and Cancer times. So just to keep that in mind, any kind of square aspect is a challenge. So at the new moon, to see a challenging new moon is kind of hard, because the new moon is typically a time to set our intentions, to get fresh energy coming in. So when we see that at 23 degrees, the sun and the moon are going to be squaring Jupiter, Pluto, Pallas Athena, and Saturn, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult energy to work with. Not only that, but then we'll have Mars out of its retrograde. No, I'm sorry. No, it's not out of its retrograde. I don't know why this is not loading. Okay, hold on one second. Oh, here we go. It's a little, no. Oh, I know, maybe I need to close this. Okay, so Mars retrograde is happening from now until November 13th. So it still will be retrograde at the new moon, but we do have it opposing this new moon. So we got that opposing energy of Mars retrograde. Oh my gosh, I'm going to go crazy. This is not loading. Let me try to refresh it. Hi. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so Mars retrograde is at 20 degrees at the new moon. So it's 3 degrees off from the new moon, which means that it is in an opposition with the new moon and then squaring. So that's a T-square in the chart. When we have a T-square in the chart, I'm going to be talking a lot more about this new moon as it gets closer to it, but when we have a T-square in the chart, it's very challenging. It's like the ultimate challenge, honestly. So in these weeks leading up to this time, like as we're going from new moon to new moon, we really want to do our deep inner work because it's vital. It's super vital. And we also want to look to, whenever we have a T-square like this, that we want to look to where's the invisible leg. And the invisible leg that we want to lean into is Cancer, which is just ultimate nurturing, self-love, and loving others, taking care of each other. And so look to where your Cancer house is for guidance if you're having a hard time in October, as I feel, unfortunately, that many will. You really want to lean into that Cancerian energy and looking at where that is in your chart. We also have Mercury retrograde coming up in Scorpio, and that will be happening for this new moon time. And I'll tell you, whenever we have Mercury retrograde in any of the water signs, it's a very emotional experience, and it's new ways of processing our emotions, new ways of clearing challenging emotional blocks. It's like there's nothing challenging about emotions. It's when we have blocks to those emotions, or we have blocks to feeling certain things because we were judged or criticized for having feelings, or weren't given the space to have our feelings, or we stuff them down and just keep going, then we have issues. So it's really looking at emotional blocks, and this is a big part of this Mercury retrograde that will be happening in Scorpio. So look at where that's going to be happening. Again, I'll have more about that at a different time, but it's really lit up at this new moon on October 16th, and it's also going to be opposing Uranus in I'm like laughing because this is so intense. It's going to be opposing that Uranus in Taurus that is retrograde right now. And that's sudden shifts, sudden changes. And when it's retrograde, it's sudden shifts and changes to our internal experience, to our internal wiring. It's an opportunity to have aha moments, wake-up calls, and disruptions that aren't super comfortable, but maybe what we need to wake up. And it's Uranus is the Tower card in Tarot, and so it's really got that aspect of just like kind of breaking away from it all so that we can have a new experience. So that's a very big element of this new moon time as well, which is hopeful because it shows that if we can focus on the internal, we will be kind of rewarded or given that opportunity to grow. Alrighty, so that's our Libra season. If you have any questions or you want to set up a chart reading with me, you can do so through the link in my profile. And don't forget to sign up for that free webinar next week, the Boundary Setting for Bitches. It's going to be an amazing time to do that as we're all moving into the fall time and needing to fortify ourselves and our energy. Have a great day. Bye.